It's 5 p.m. here in Lagos, Nigeria. You're watching The World Today. Here's what's coming up on the program. The Obamas address crowds at second night of the 2024 Democratic National Convention, warn of tight race. Pakistani authorities charge man with cyber terrorism over Southport attack misinformation. Plus, Thailand detects Mpox case in European man who traveled from an unidentified country in Africa. The World Today starts now. I'm Amarachi Ubania. Welcome to the program. The 2024 Democratic National Convention is still ongoing in Chicago. The second night of the event saw the Obamas giving back-to-back speeches, electrifying thousands of Democrats. Former U.S. First Lady Michelle Obama and former President Barack Obama gave a resounding endorsement of Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris, saying she's the qualified person for the job. The couple also took a shot at former President Donald Trump and warned their party not to lose sight of what remains an extremely tight race.
If we bankrupt, it couldn't be more obvious. Kamala Harris and I built our lives on those same foundational values. Kamala Harris is more than ready for this moment. She is one of the most qualified people ever to seek the office of the presidency. Kamala has shown her allegiance to this nation, not by spewing anger and bitterness, but by living a life of service and always pushing the doors of opportunity open to others. Unfortunately, we know what comes next. We know folks are going to do everything they can to distort her truth. My husband and I sadly know a little something about this. For years, Donald Trump did everything in his power to try to make people fear us. See, his limited, narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hardworking, highly educated, successful people who happen to be black.
The torch has been passed. Now it is up to all of us to fight for the America we believe in. And make no mistake, it will be a fight. For all the incredible energy we've been able to generate over the last few weeks, for all the rallies and the meme, this will still be a tight race in a closely divided country. A country where too many Americans are still struggling. Where a lot of Americans don't believe government can help. And as we gather here tonight, the people who will decide this election are asking a very simple question. Who will fight for me? Who's thinking about my future? One thing is for certain, Donald Trump is not losing sleep over that question. Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. It has been a constant stream of gripes and grievances that's actually been getting worse now that he's afraid of losing to Kamala. The truth is, Donald Trump sees power as nothing more than it means to his ends. He wants the middle class to pay the price for another huge tax cut that would mostly help him and his rich friends. He killed a bipartisan immigration deal written in part by one of the most conservative Republicans in Congress that would have helped secure our southern border because he thought trying to actually solve the problem would hurt his campaign.
Well, United States Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has said Ms. Harris is the only right candidate to move America forward, lauding her as the best partner the Senate has ever wished for. Also speaking at the second night of the convention, where U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders and Illinois Governor Jay Roberts. However, the lineup for tonight's speakers, it's Wednesday, include Democratic Vice President nominee Tim Walz, former U.S. President Bill Clinton, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, amongst others.
Only one candidate will move America forward, Kamala Harris. Vice President Harris has been the best partner Senate Democrats could ever have asked for. Under her and President Biden's leadership, Senate Democrats lowered prescription drug prices and created millions of good-paying American jobs. I am telling all of you now, we're going to hold the Senate again, and we're poised to pick up seats.
Thank you.
But Donald Trump, this is a guy who peddles anti-Semitic stereotypes. He even invited a white supremacist to Mar-a-Lago. And unfortunately, his prejudice goes in all directions. He fuels Islamophobia and issued a Muslim ban as president.
When 60% of our people live paycheck to paycheck, the top 1% have never, ever had it so good. And these oligarchs tell us we shouldn't tax the rich. I look forward to working with Kamala and Tim to pass this agenda. And let us be very clear. This is not a radical agenda. But let me tell you what a radical agenda is. And that is Trump's Project 2025.
Now, one president we will never claim is the con artist the Republicans nominated in Milwaukee last month. Donald Trump once called Chicago embarrassing. To quote a great Chicagoan who won 6 world championships on these very grounds, we take that personally. Let's be clear. Donald Trump thinks that we should trust him on the economy because he claims to be very rich. But take it from an actual billionaire.
Speaking of the former president, Donald Trump is continuing his 2024 presidential campaign rally. Speaking in Michigan in the city of Detroit, Trump accused Vice President Kamala Harris of staging a coup in what he called a violent overthrow of President Joe Biden. The Republican presidential nominee also responded to comments made by Democrats at the ongoing Democratic National Convention in Chicago.
Talk about how we are going to stop the Kamala crime wave that is going on at levels that nobody's ever seen before. And she is, as you know, the most radical left person ever even thought of for a high office, certainly for the office of president. People don't know the real Kamala, but I do. And, you know, you see her now with a smile, and she's gotten rid of the laugh over the last couple of days. I don't know. I haven't seen her laugh. They've told her, don't laugh, please. But I'll bet inside she was laughing last night when she saw the way Joe Biden left, because that was a coup. That was a coup. And I'm no fan of his at all. And it started with the debate, and from that point on, it just got worse and worse. But that was a coup. It was a vicious, violent overthrow of a president of the United States. I watched last night in amazement as they tried to pretend that everything was great, the crime was great, the border was great, there wasn't a problem at all, no inflation, no nothing. They lied last night about things that nobody's ever seen. They lied about soldiers at a gravesite. They lied about Charlottesville. They lied about inflation. The inflation's been absolutely horrible. Look at radical liberal Kamala Harris. She's been the ringleader for this anti-crime and the anti-police crusade. It's a real anti-police crusade. They just have it out for the police. Nobody knows why. I don't understand why. From a common sense, I like to say the Republican Party is now the party of common sense. Conservative, yeah, I guess conservative. It doesn't matter. It's the party of common sense. We want to have Kamala Harris will deliver crime, chaos, destruction, and death. If she's allowed to be the president of the United States, you'll see levels of crime that you've never seen before.
Joining us now to discuss this is global affairs analyst Edward Ekpa. He is in Dallas, Texas. Edward, great to have you on the program. And I know that you took time to watch, the Democrats and the speeches, especially for former President Barack Obama. There have been some criticism, however, for the Democrats in their convention, people who say that their presidential candidate is oblivious to the current realities and that Kamala Harris would be a hard sell to Americans in November. What do you think of this? What do you think the Democrats are doing wrong as it concerns connecting with the American people?
Well, thank you for the question. Obama is not on the ballot. Bernie Sanders is not on the ballot. Schumer is not on the ballot. Clinton is not on the ballot. Kamala Harris is on the ballot. The Democrats are, this is typical of them. It's not about the candidate. It's about this mob reaction and trust me kind of attitude that they often bring, on campaigns. If you go back to 2016, Hillary Clinton was, projected to be winning ahead of whatever. And at the end, we know who became president. If you look at all the speeches they made, Trump's name was mentioned 147 times. And we know who Trump is. But what about the issues confronting and affecting Americans? Immigration, inflation, job, the integrity and the respect of America on a global scene, or even within us Americans. That's what this campaign is about. It's not about the noise. It's not about the speech. Obama was in office for 8 years. What did he do? He's capable of, saying what he said. Well, what did he do for Black people? What did he do for even African? He's a Kenyan American. He's not an African American. What did he do? What policies today, except to sell us, same-sex marriage and gay rights and all these other things that have been posted on Americans, affecting our own individual right. This is not about the democracy. This is about the right and the freedom and liberty that Americans are used to. That is why we are a constitutional republic. We're not a democracy. But they have to use that word democracy to impress, people who think, democracy is what it is. No, this is about our rights. A lot of people are naive about American government, the structure. You look at our constitution, the word democracy was never mentioned in that constitution. So, but we're excited. The convention will be over this week, and then Kamala Harris is going to do what? Whether she goes on the campaign trail and start to, expose herself and take questions, or these other people are going to be campaigning for her. Again, the Democrats are not very confident in her. That's why they have to bring everybody out to come talk on behalf of Kamala Harris. We want to see the candidate, and with the debate is coming up. We're going to see how she's going to hold her own, when the questions are asked.
Yeah, we're going to see, the debates coming up in September, and people will hear her. I want to make this even more interesting. Joanna LeBlanc joins us. She's national security law and a foreign policy expert. She's in Washington. Joanna, thanks for joining us on the program as well. Now, former President Barack Obama and former U.S. First Lady Michelle addressed the convention Tuesday night. Both of them had great oratory skills. They do. But let's not forget that these were one of the last people to get on board this support Kamala Harris train, even though former President Barack Obama did encourage President Biden to drop out of the presidential race. He did not seem eager to endorse Harris at first. But what do you make about what he said about her last night at the convention?
Thank you, Amarachi. It's always a pleasure to join you. I think former President Barack Obama's speech was one that was filled with excitement, one that really mobilized the Democratic base, because we know the Obamas, one thing that they're good at is they're good at speaking to the American people. They're good at instilling hope. They're good at instilling values in the American people. But what's interesting is that former President Barack Obama's speech, he talked a lot about securing democracy. He talked a lot about making sure that the American dream is accessible to not just some Americans, but all Americans. But he actually spoke very little of actual Kamala Harris. And I don't know if a lot of people picked up on that. But I thought that was quite interesting. He really focused more on the establishment, the party, and making a case for the Democratic Party being the party of the people, the party of common sense, the party that is actually going to address some of the critical domestic and foreign policy issues, and the party that's going to restore America's global standing and ensure that America remains the leader of the free world.
Yeah, I noticed that too, how he focused on the party and its place in America rather than the candidate herself. Edward, one thing they say, and I think this is the reality on the ground, is that it's still going to be a really tight race between Harris and Trump, even though he's doused the tension, the personality attacks a bit. You can hear the way that he talks is not as aggressive anymore, in his campaigns. But he has promised to cut taxes, promised to return American jobs from China. He's promised to build the economy, to also keep illegal migrants out of America. What do you make of Trump's campaign now compared to when he ran in 2020?
Thank you for the question. In 2016, when I was interviewed, I endorsed Trump for, when he announced he was running. A lot of people in Dallas didn't like me for it, but, I'm a man of my own. I'm independent. I am not persuaded by, party affiliation. I'm not a Democrat. I don't have anything against them. I just don't believe in what the Democrats do. So when Trump has his antics, and I made a comment that, the office will tame him. The Oval Office is not an easy job. It's not a celebrity job. Obama turned it into a celebrity job. But, before we even get to Trump, let me make one point. Obama endorsement. Since he left office, he endorsed a candidate in Georgia to run for governor. She didn't win, and he endorsed somebody in Florida. He didn't win. So all the noise about Obama capital, political capital, is not that. We're glad to have had somebody other than a white man who is president of America. But Obama approval rating amongst Americans is not as popular as the media wants us to believe. The same thing for Michelle, but. The point is that, when Trump was in office, we know what we were paying for gasoline. We know what the interest rate, we borrowed money at less than 3%. This is what Americans want to see. They don't care who is in the Oval Office. They want to see who is going to address the issues that affect the ordinary American. And the ordinary American is not a Democrat, is not a Republican, or it depends on an American. You still have to go to the grocery store. You still have to be concerned about public safety. You still have to be concerned about people coming to America. Trump was the only president that said, you don't have to die to come to America. Come to America legally. But when people are breaking into America because of the nuisance and the challenges in their own country, do they know we have social challenges here in America? There are a lot of people in America that are homeless. We're not breaking into the home of wealthy people and saying, take us in, you have to. So Trump said, hey, come to America legally and avail yourself of what this country has to offer. I came to America legally 37 years ago. That's why I was able to run for mayor, run for Congress, and serve on boards and commissions, because I am a legal immigrant. Illegal immigration is not good for any country. It violates you. It throws your demographics out of whack. You can't even know who is where. So I am looking forward to Trump. Yes, of course, he has to tune it down. I wrote something recently about him. I said, become a statesman. Don't just be a political figure. it takes a lot to be a statesman, and a statesman is somebody who addresses everybody. Even though we have a party identity, a Republican Democrat, but you're going to be president of America, not the president of a Republican Party or president of Democratic Party, is the president of America. So the campaign is on. This is where we're going to start paying attention, because now everybody's done their convention. So now the candidates have to come speak to us. And, the observation that Obama didn't mention Michelle, yes. Obama was not hoping that Michelle Kamala was going to be it. But Kamala got there by default. If Joe Biden has said, I'm not going to run for re-election, and thrown open the nomination process, I can guarantee you Kamala will never have won the nomination, because there are other Democrats that was challenging. When she ran on her own before Biden picked her as a Black woman, she didn't even get any delegates. She dropped out. She couldn't raise money. The woman has good looks and whatever it is, but she's not a very credible candidate. She's a default candidate, and Americans will reward her that when it comes November 5th. I'm nervous, of course. You never know until the votes are counted. I am nervous, but I am hoping that Trump pull this thing off and deliver what he delivered his first term. If he wins, he'll be the second time in an American history a president left office, came back and won. And the second term will be better than the first time, because had he won the second term, he would have been a lame duck president. Now he has energized. He's seen his mistakes. He's seen things that when he gets back, then the next 4 years will be more energetic than the first.
You know what's interesting? Either way, they will both be making history. I mean, Trump and Harris. Trump being, a former U.S. president who's returning to office, and then one with 34 convictions against him. And Harris will be the first first female U.S. president. Also, first Black. Now we understand Black female president.
Not Black.
Well, what is interesting about both of you, and as you were talking, I was just thinking when you were mentioning immigration, is that you're both legal immigrants to the United States. That's interesting. Joanna, beg your pardon. Could you respond to what Edward has said about, Trump's policies, things he said about immigration and so on? And do you really think this is a tough race for both of them, Trump and Harris?
First, let me answer the second question. I think that initially a campaign between Biden and Trump was a much easier campaign to win. And I think that after that disastrous debate that we all watched between Joe Biden and Mr. Trump, I think a lot of us had already predicted that Trump was going to win the presidential election. And then on top of it, there was an assassination attempt, which really secured the deal, right? And then Mr. Biden announced that he would no longer seek re-election, and then endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris. And as my co-panelists indicated, Vice President Harris was not the preferred candidate of the party. In fact, many within the party, including Barack Obama and Speaker Pelosi, wanted an open convention. But I think that for the sake of unity, for the sake of not appearing as being the party of dysfunction, especially when you look at your opponent who has a criminal record, who's been convicted, but yet the party supports him wholeheartedly and has given him the nomination to run for the presidency. So the Democratic Party did not want to lose momentum. They did not want to lose credibility. So therefore, the party fell in line and endorsed Vice President Harris. And again, as my co-panelists indicated, when Vice President ran for the presidency, she could not win a primary. But this is the candidate that the Democratic Party has now, and the entire party has rallied behind this candidate. But there is a lot of people within the American public who doesn't know much about Vice President Harris, and they're just now learning about her. Yes, she is the current Vice President of the United States. However, the role of the Vice President is is to support the agenda of the president, and it's not to overshadow the president. And secondly, even though Vice President Harris was a senator in the United States, but the reality is that most Americans can't identify an average member of Congress. There are about 535 members of Congress, 435 in the House, and 100 senators. Most Americans don't know who they are unless you are the Alexandria Cortez of the world, you are the Jasmine Crockett of the world, who are now rising stars within the Democratic Party. So I think there's a lot that Vice President Harris has to share with the American public in terms of her policy stance. I was pleased to see recently she announced that one of the policy proposals that she will support is a $25,000 deduction for first-time homeowners here in America, which I think will help a lot of people, especially people of African descent, first-time home buyers, and those of the middle class and lower class. So that's a good step in the right direction. But let me answer your question about immigration. Yes, I'm an immigrant. I'm from the Republic of Haiti, came to America at the age of 9, the legal route. Yes, we do have a crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border. The American immigration system is a mess, for lack of a better word. But the reality is that, Amarachi, the reason why people are flooding to the shores of America is not necessarily because people want to leave their homes, right? Who want to take these ridiculous journeys to walk miles and miles through Mexico and different countries across Latin America to get to our borders, unless there was something severely wrong. And one of those problems is U.S. foreign policy have really undermined the stabilization of some of these countries in the Western Hemisphere, as well as in countries across the African continent. When you're thinking about the U.S.-Mexico border, it's not just Mexicans. You have Haitians, you have Jamaicans, you have folks from the DRC, you have Ghanaians, you have Nigerians, you have folks from all over the world. You have Russians, you have Chinese who have made their way to the border so that they can at least have a shot at what we call here the American dream. And secondly, what drives irregular migration is global warming. And we know the global north is a big contributor to the global climate crisis that we have in the world.
Well, thank you so much, Joanna. Apologies to our viewers there. We just lost feed off screen, but we're all still here. Now, both of them will still be facing off in that televised debate on September 10th. Now, I don't know about you, but I've listened to Kamala Harris speak. I mean, I think I listened to her in the last debate in which Joe Biden won the election. The Democratic debates before a nominee was chosen, before Joe Biden became a nominee for the Democratic Party. And I'm not really sure, what exactly Harris's convictions are about a number of issues. The example for the economy, for instance, immigration, for instance. I mean, it's nice to hear her on script, when she's speaking from a televised prompter, her thoughts are coordinated. But I've never really heard Harris speak off script and to understand where exactly she's coming from. Trump, it's easy. I mean, he's done it a number of times. It's easy to tell where he's coming from. Both of them face off on September 10th in an ABC News televised presidential debate. How do you think they both will turn out? Edward, let's start with you.
Look, Kamala Harris, yes, she's been a senator, vice president, but remember she was attorney general in California. She's been in public service all her life. She's one woman who's never earned the money on her own merit. She's always been a government-dependent employee, just like every Democrat. If you look at Obama, you look at Clinton, that's how the Democrats get to power. They are not business people. They don't think logically. They don't understand certain things American people do. They just want that power in order for them to get rich. Coming back to what Joanna said about, real estate in Dallas, Texas, I develop homes. Okay, so what Kamala Harris is said about $25,000 is we do it here. It is called mortgage assistance first-time home buyers. It's not a new concept. It has always been there. If you live in a certain zip code, you can avail yourself of certain things. I'm a real estate appraiser. I'm a property tax consultant. I mean, if you talk about real estate, I know it just like anybody else. But the point I'm trying to say, those things are not new. But for people who are ignorant, who even live in certain cities, they don't even know what is available. America is not like Nigeria, where there's one big policy coming down from capital. Every state and every locality has incentives to incentivize economic development. And if you understand what is available, I served on what they call the New Market Tax Credit Board, and that is a program sponsored by the U.S. Treasury Department where we get tax credit and allocate it for development. So when it goes back to what Tamara is going to say, we don't know. I mean, again, these are the two candidates that are going to be on the ballot, and that's what the American people are going to choose. I can't tell you who's going to win. Again, my horse in this derby is Trump. And it's not because I like him personally or because he's an angel. There are no angels in politics, simply just angels, because we don't have any perfect candidates. We don't have any perfect countries. So when you talk about immigration, America should not be burdened by the nuisance of other countries. Every country now is ruled and governed by somebody who is native to that particular country. So they should do everything possible to make sure they have policies and programs that encourage their own people to live within their country. When I was denied visa in Nigeria 2 times before I got it the 3rd time, my father said, "You will never go to somebody's country until you show me a visa." And I got the visa. And when I came here in less than so many years, I was able to get into corporate America. I have been self-employed since 1990. So that was one, because I came to America with the respect of immigration. If you come to my home as my sister or my sibling without invitation, I'm going to kick you out. But if I invite you, I will support you with everything I have. That is, we should take our countries as homes. The global warming is one of those things that the Democrats sell to the world. There's no global warming, that is climate change. And that climate change has been what has been going on. 2 days in history has exactly the same climate. So you manage your environment. The amount of water we've had since God created us has been the same thing. The amount of air has been the same thing. The amount of land has been the same thing. Thermometer that we used to measure temperature has not even been 200 years old. So how can anybody talk about climate change? If you want to talk about climate change, talk about it from the beginning of time. And how have we measured temperatures? Yes, we have more people on Earth, but there's going to be the ecosystem is such that it can absorb whatever that lives on it. So, the idea of climate change, enabling immigration, or American being disruptive. If somebody comes into my home and is able to take my wife from me, I don't blame that outside. I blame myself for creating a condition that even warranted that. So presidents should look at their country as home and look at their people and say, what can we do to support you to live here? And if you want to live voluntarily, you can go. But not to where you see Nigerians crossing Sahara Desert to get to Europe. You see Mexico's next door. We don't have that issue with Canada. Look at your people.
Edward, I'd like you to leave room for Joanna to respond to this and also to give her thoughts on it. Joanna, just not to move away from script, we're talking about the presidential debate coming up in September. Your thoughts on that, and perhaps you want to respond a bit to what Edward has been saying.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to the home buyer tax credit. I understand certain zip codes, certain states have credits that they offer to first-time home buyers, but to have a uniform system and process in place where it is ran by the federal government, which means that every state will have to adhere to this. I think it's a good thing, right? Because there are some states that do have tax first buyer tax programs. There are some states that don't. There are some states that have 10,000. There are some states that have 20,000. There are some states that have 5,000, right? But to have a uniform federal law that all states must adhere to, I think it's a good thing. And I applaud Vice President Harris for this initiative because we're seeing that becoming a home buyer in America is not what it used to be. And that is partly due to the student debt crisis here in this country. We told our children that if you go to school, you follow the law, you will have a shot at the American dream, meaning that being able to purchase a home, right? Two, 3-bedroom home with the white picket fence and the 2-car garages. That dream is not necessarily a reality for many people in this country, even some of the most educated people, because of the student debt crisis in this country, which I hope that whoever is elected as the next president of the United States will address the student debt crisis issue, because the people who are impacted by it the most are people of African descent. It needs to be addressed. But as it relates to immigration, some of our foreign policies have indeed destabilized some of these countries where people can no longer live and they have to come to our shores. Now, I'm not saying that we should be a lawless nation where anybody and everybody could just come into our shores without proper vetting, but we have to be realistic with ourselves as Americans, as America, to see how has American foreign policies contributed to the vast number of people we see at the U.S.-Mexico border. I mean, for goodness sakes, we have evidence of the United States supporting certain regimes, certain leaders that were not necessarily in the best interest of the people, and have caused people to flee those countries to come to our shores. So I think that as a state, as a country, we must revisit the root cause of irregular migration in order to reduce the number of people who will come to our borders. Because if we don't look at the root cause of irregular migration, the issue would not be fixed. And another thing that I think was disastrous for Vice President Harris is that the Biden administration, as vice president, her portfolio was to address the border crisis. And it is very nuanced, very complicated, that she herself will not be able to achieve. It's going to take an entire reframe of our U.S. foreign policy through Congress, through the State Department, through the National Security Council at the White House, in order to really address some of the root cause of our of irregular migration into this country.
I think it's safe to agree that we will discuss the September 10 presidential debate when it does come up, because none of you addressed any of those issues. But thank you again. It's been a real pleasure having both of you on the show. Joanna LeBlanc, national security law and foreign policy expert. Always a pleasure having you on the program. Edward Okpa, global affairs analyst. Always a pleasure having you as well. Thank you both for making time to be here on the program.
Thank you for having me, Joanne. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Edward. Enjoyed your perspective.
Yes,
I won't cancel you.
There will be more time for all of this talk. Thank you both.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Bye. We're off at a short break now. The World Today still ahead on the program. 28 Pakistani pilgrims killed in a bus crash in Iran. We have details. Stay with us. It's been 3 days since the Italian Coast Guard launched a search and rescue operation after luxury super yacht sank off the coast of Italy. Head of Sicily's Civil Protection Agency has confirmed 2 bodies have been found inside the vessel. Out of the 6 passengers still missing, only one of them is believed to be that of a man. The search efforts have been hampered by a range of issues, including divers being unable to see inside the yacht, as 3 centimeters thick glass windows are preventing access. The operation is being aided by specialist divers who are trained to work in small spaces. They've had to be flown in from Rome and Sardinia. A team of 4 British inspectors from the Marine Accident Investigation Branch are also at the site of the incident. Return to Iran now. Still reeling from the accident that killed 28 foreigners in the province of Yazd. Authorities have attributed the accident to a defective braking system. The dead, mainly Pakistani pilgrims, were traveling from the Sindh province in Pakistan to Iraq's holy city of Karbala to commemorate one of the biggest events in the Shia calendar. 23 other passengers were injured, 14 of them critically, according to Pakistan's ambassador to Iran, Muhammad Mudassir Tipu. Local media says about 50 people believed to have been on the bus at the time of the crash, including pilgrims from Larkana, Gotki, and cities in Sindh. However, in Pakistan, police have arrested a man identified as Farhan Asif on suspicion of cyber terrorism in relation to disinformation thought to have fueled recent unrest in the UK. Asif is linked to a website which gave a false name for the suspected Southport attacker and suggested he was an asylum seeker who arrived in the UK on a small boat. The article, published on the website now in the hours after the attack, was widely quoted in viral posts on social media. Unrest broke out in England and Northern Ireland after the fatal stabbing attack in which 3 young girls died. Asif said he'd been writing it based on information copied from a UK-based social media account without verifying the information. He said he ran the website alone. Well, here in Nigeria, the UK government has donated a counter-insurgency training facility to the Nigerian Armed Forces to help enhance the reality of their training and better the force for its future operations. The training facility was funded by the UK through its Ministry of Defence and built by a team of Royal Engineers from the British Army working alongside Nigerian Army engineers. The facility will make training more realistic for the soldiers and help prepare trainees to operate effectively during deployments. Nigeria's Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Lagbaja, represented by Major General Muhammad S.G. Muhammad, officially opened the training facility in Ogun State on Tuesday, alongside the British Deputy High Commissioner in Lagos, Mr. Johnny Baxter, and Brigadier Martin Leach from the UK's Ministry of Defence. Social media influencer Andrew Tate is back in the news. Romania police are searching his houses as part of an investigation into new allegations against him. Prosecutors say Tate is already awaiting trial for rape and human trafficking, but could potentially now face additional charges of sex with and trafficking in underage persons, as well as money laundering and attempting to influence witnesses. According to a statement from DCOT, the Special Prosecution Service of the Romanian Organized Crime Directorate, 4 houses were searched this morning in the capital Bucharest and in Ilfov County. In an apparent response to the raid, the influencer posted on X, formerly Twitter, "The Matrix is real and they have a tried and true playbook." Thailand has joined a list of growing countries to have detected its first case of the new strain of Mpox. The patient landed in Bangkok on August 14 and was sent to hospital with Mpox symptoms the following morning. The patient is a 66-year-old European who traveled to Thailand from an African country and has been quarantined. In the meantime, health officials are monitoring 42 people who came into close contact with the patient. 2 people, a Zimbabwean pilot and a Dutch national, have been killed following a crash of a Zimbabwean-owned aircraft in Lake Malawi. District Commissioner for Malawi's Nkotaka, where the plane crashed, Ben Tono, said the bodies were discovered this morning after rescue efforts intensified. The area was Nkotakota. The C-2110 aircraft had taken off from the Lakeshore district of Nkotakota en route to eastern Malawi and crashed 45 minutes before landing. Lake Malawi is the 3rd largest lake in Africa and is approximately 580 kilometers long, more than half the length of the country. Another break now on The World Today, still ahead. This 106-year-old Bali traditional dancer has just one thing to prove: her dance moves. You guessed it. Okay, well, if you didn't, find out after the break. Stay with us. Now to South Africa, where the International Sustainability Standards Board and founder of a growing business foundation, Dr. Ndidi Nnolly, Edozien is advocating sustainability in business in Africa. She made the remarks at the 2024 Engage conference currently taking place in Durban. It's attracted leading experts in finance, accounting, and business from across the continent and beyond.
We are very centered around our land and our people. We are very blessed with natural resources, and we are very blessed with a young, vibrant population. And so to think about our future with our people in mind and with our natural ecosystem and natural resources in mind, and with a mindset that allows us to grow through investment in people, in ecosystems, in human capital, in biodiversity, and ensuring that we're taking into cognizance climate-related risks and opportunities is definitely something that we need to focus attention and energy on. And the ISSB standards have been developed as a global common language, as a global baseline for sustainability-related and climate-related financial disclosures, which are supposed to be included as part of general purpose financial reporting. And they are designed specifically for global capital markets and are very focused on material financial effects. So current and future anticipated financial effects that arise from sustainability-related risks and opportunities. So it's really about creating a common language so that companies and investors, for example, can have a conversation around mitigating risks, managing risks, and unlocking opportunities and unlocking capital flows.
We're staying in South Africa, but now focused on 36-year-old Lulu Letape, who 6 years ago quit her job in the city after an autoimmune disease prompted her to seek a calmer life. Seeking a calmer life and a means of livelihood and a hobby, she turned to beekeeping honeybees. Her business has expanded, and now she talks about empowering women in South Africa.
At a farm east of Pretoria, beekeeper Lulu Letape is on a mission to educate people about the importance of bees and empower locals to protect the insects, which are vital for the environment and food production.
Hi, my name is Lulu Letape. I'm a beekeeper. I'm based in Pretoria East, where I keep a farm. I've got a total of 100 beehives at the moment. Some are in this farm where we're at, and others are placed amongst my neighbors who are kindly housing the boxes to ensure that they contribute to the environmental protection of the area, but also to the pollination of the farms around the area.
She started Bongi Bees, not just as a business, but a platform to raise awareness about bees' role in ecosystems.
If we don't have bees, we won't have food, because for food to be able to exist, pollination must happen, and that's the importance of bees. Not only does it give pollination to food, but it also cleans the environment. The area in the cities, it has got so much dirt around. The air you breathe is dirty already with all the fumes, all the petrol around, and the bees clean all that as they fly around and just buzzing naturally, enjoying themselves. They are cleaning the environment for us and making it healthier for us to live. So that's what we have in this environment.
Bees are in decline globally due to habitat loss from industrial development and climate change disrupting their life cycles, according to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. At Letape's farm, she faces challenges like pesticides used by surrounding farmers, but she's advocating for sustainable practices, lobbying to protect bees and educating neighbors. She also trains a group of women, teaching them to grow and manage hives and extract honey so they can start their own businesses.
Beekeeping has helped me to calm me down. It has helped me understand my environment. It has helped me appreciate nature. And I've been looking at companies that do the same thing with me so that I can get help to do more for bees, to do more for communities. I also do train beekeepers in the area, women in beekeeping. About 30 women now I've been able to train in the past 6 years, and those women are starting their own businesses.
The honey that they make, it's healthy. You can get a lot out of it. Not work only, but you can get honey, you can make a business with it, sales. But it's also good for environment, like the pollen they do, they pollinate, and it makes other things grow as well.
Ms. Lape aims to use bees to empower more women in her community.
And we keep telling you on the program, age is nothing but a number. Not us, but 106-year-old Gusti Soli can prove it. She's a Boli dancer who's gone viral thanks to her passion and commitment to her performances. She says she's danced in Sanur, Ubud, and Jakarta. She puts on her makeup and costume with the help of an assistant before taking to the stage for the traditional Legong Pepang dance. How does she stay supple? She only eats cassava, sweet potatoes, and corn, meals from childhood, and she rarely eats rice. But she does cut grass in the rice fields every day. Soli gained national attention while dancing at the 2023 Bali Arts Festival and reportedly performed for Indonesian President Sukarno in 1945. I tell you, she doesn't look a day older than 70. Thanks for watching the program. I'm Amarachi Ubani.